Call the meeting to order for regular City Commission meeting for Thursday, August 11, 2016. Welcome everybody here in the audience tonight, as well as those viewing from home. First item on our agenda tonight is to consider approval of the minutes of the meeting from July 28th. Does any commissioner have any questions or comments on the minutes? If not, we will consider them approved as written. Once again, thank Brenda Kitchen for the great job putting those together. Moving on, our next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. At this point, any person in the audience that would like to address the commission on non-agenda items, please come forward. Commissioners, I took the liberty of doing something a little different here on citizen comments, and I'd like to call forth our new and I wanted to take this opportunity to give you a formal official City Commission welcome to our city and also to our Commission chamber. Welcome you back here anytime you'd like. So at this time, if you'd like to kind of make any remarks or whatever, and then perhaps if any commissioners have any comments or questions, feel free.
It's very kind of you. I appreciate it. It's been wonderful the 5-6 weeks that I've been here in Hayes. Wonderful community as far as very welcoming, and it's been a very easy transition in that regard. So that part's been wonderful. A lot of meetings, a lot of business as far as on the school side of it. And I'll say this now so I don't forget a little bit later. I'm not going to lose interest and leave just in the middle of the meeting, but O'Laughlin does have their first activity this evening, so I'll be leaving to get to one of the first elementary activities that's tonight. I would like to end up sharing that from my experience there at Harrington, the 9 years that I had there, I come here with experience and kind of have it in mind that a school district has to end up working with the city in so many different ways. And the reason for us, it was very easy. We ended up cohabitating the building. Half of the building was the city office and half the building was the school district office. We even used the same area. You know, the boardroom was also the commissioner's room for meetings. So had many meetings, regular meetings with the city manager. It made things very, in the 9 years that I was there, I would say that it just was the way it was supposed to work as far as understanding city and school, hospital or medical. You had the service organizations in the community. You had the businesses. All of that really worked together. I know as a small community, may have been a lot easier in some ways with the being simpler, but at the same time, it just seemed like that's the way you did it. And it was coming here. I'm trying to end up learning the connections and try to end up establishing those lines of communication. But I'm very excited to end up being part of the community here and doing all I can to end up making sure that the community is a healthy, vital community. But I do know that the base of that is having leaders who have integrity and have a vision for the future of the community with the really the people being the full purpose of what our work is all about. So the combined effort's what's going to do that. And I know that's a little more complicated than to end up putting walls around the different organizations and that, but that doesn't work very well. And it's a necessity to end up working together and communicating. And that part I'm very excited. It's nice to end up already having a scheduled meeting in a couple weeks with the city manager, and I hope that that's somewhat of a regular basis of talking and knowing what's going on in that regard. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here and say a few words. Eber, thank you.
No problem at all. Does any commissioner have any comments?
Mr. Thiessen, thank you for coming tonight. It means a great deal to me, as well as I'm sure the other commissioners. In December, I asked that we meet with your body, the school board, and the county commissioners on a regular basis, and heard nothing. Many of them, everyone thought it was a great idea, just wonderful, but nothing has come of it.
Okay.
And now, 8 months later, I believe that you're right. There's a lot of things that we do well if we do them together. we get a lot more accomplished.
Right.
And I would extend that offer again to the school board. And now that the elections are over for the county commissioners, maybe they'll have some free time as well.
Okay.
So,
Well,
anytime
Toby
you-
and I, that's what I look forward to, is part of this, a lot of, like, a lot of questions come to me, Henry, and they end up saying, what do you have in mind? What do you plan on changing? And it's like, I don't come here with any ideas of what's
You learn.
changing. It's a matter of understanding what is here and gather information from many different people and then working from that to say, okay, maybe a year from now I have an idea of what really is of interest to change or really focus on. So, yes, the one thing I've never had so many meetings in just 5 weeks. You know, it's been just amazing, the variety. But I've been able to go to, is it First Care? And talking to Brian was delightful. I really enjoyed that. I had no idea the facility there is just, what's been built up there is fantastic for this community. Been invited to go to Link, haven't been there yet. I mean, there's just so many connections that end up, that are so good for the community. You know, this, Hayes is really a very vibrant community. It's,
Commissioner Swell, I'm glad you brought that up because that is one of the topics I had for discussion.
Thank you. I knew you did.
well, there's an agenda.
A list of notes on his cell phone.
Okay.
Well, and I will say, I echo Commissioner Swaller. You know, I think we need to make sure we're working together with you guys, the county, and you know, I have family in the district. My wife works in the district, and I look forward to, you know, seeing what you can bring to our community. I think we have a great community. I think we do work good together, but we need to continue that. So I welcome, and
Thank you.
I look forward to working with you.
Very good.
Thank you for coming. We very much appreciate that and look forward to working with you. And it is nice to hear with your connection in Harrington with the city, and hopefully we can continue that here as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't realize that experience would end up being such a key factor coming to a larger community and realizing, well, I just expect that. You know, that's just the way it should be. And but I do understand it. It can be more complicated. It definitely can. And but I'd like to work on that to end up making sure it can be as easy as possible. So.
Well, I thought that was admirable. You know, you had a booth out at the Ellis County Fair this year, and I thought that
Heard a
was,
lot of good feedback about that. Thank you.
exactly, yeah. And you know, I was out at the fair every night, and I even out on the, you know, out amongst the fairgrounds there, I heard people comment on that, and of course the historical display that you had in there, I think,
Yeah.
has piqued a lot of people's
Sarah
interest.
Wassinger did a great job of collecting 200 pictures and displaying them, and it's amazing to have 143 years of public education in Hayes. You know, that's, once in a while you think of that. I enjoyed most that picture of the first building. The first school building was, they had some very good pictures of it. It was kind of,
Absolutely, yeah.
it's fun to end up looking at that.
So, well, at any rate, I know we have a lot of cooperative efforts, whether it be security, snow removal, or whatever. And so, I know the city at large is very supportive of education. So, welcome to Hayes, officially from the City Commission, and all the best to you this school session. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, mayoral appointments for approval, that being the Hayes Recreation Commission Board, Mark Young. And we have some appointment recommendations for the Building Trades Board and the Public Library Board.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. We have no unfinished business to review, therefore we'll move on to new business. First item under that heading is the 2016 street maintenance supplemental diamond grinding contract. We talked about that the other night at our work session. Chair recognizes Mr. Sund.
Commissioners, Greg Sun, the Director of Public Works. And this is not something I anticipated approaching you on earlier this year. We bid this contract for grinding a couple different areas of concrete streets from Vine to Sherman on 27th Street, and also a block of Canterbury just south of 13th. And the contractor we awarded it to, it was awarded actually to APAC, because we received two bids, APAC and also West Fork LLC of Iowa. The company that APAC subcontracts to is one that they use all the time in many different locations. This company has done work for the city before, and they were the low bid. We had no reason to reject them at the time. But at the same time, I don't think they fully understood, nor did we, what was involved in doing some dining and grinding on these streets. We didn't know at the time how much of a deflection was being caused by the warping of the street. As you can see, these lines in the street, this is what we're having problems with. When they've ground the top of the surface off of the street, it still leaves these dips, and it's because the street itself is warping. It's raising in the middle in each panel and down on the sides. John Brown and I measured them, and even after doing 2 passes with diamond grinding, they still have about a 5/8 of an inch dip. And the company that we worked with said that they just didn't think that they would be able to, even if they did 1 or 2 more passes, achieve what we were trying to do of smooth the street out. And that's why we're coming to you tonight to recommend that you look at an alternative. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about warping the street. This is something that the person that did the company that's doing our pavement assessment said that there isn't even a rating for this for pavement failure. It's so rare that they don't even rate it. So we don't know why it's happening here. It's happening on more than one street. And we're probably going to have to do some engineering and geotech type studies in order to figure out what's going on so we can best treat it in the future. The other company that bid, which is the one we're recommending that you consider as an alternate bid, is West Fork. As you can see, this machine is considerably bigger than the one that was in the scene in the picture just a little bit ago. And by doing this, they have a longer machine, it's got a longer wheelbase, it's a heavier machine, and it can grind considerably faster than the one that the other company was using. It takes a little bit larger swath too every time that it carves a street. We have to be careful when we do this, because when you carve off a concrete street, it makes the concrete thinner. And we ought to make sure that we have enough concrete left to keep it as a solid performing surface. So it's something we're very aware of and concerned as we possibly look at shaving off a little bit more of the street. The West Fork bid was $168,080. And because we're looking at this now in August, they can't come in and do this right now. It's something that they will have to come back and do when their season pretty much ends, which is October. From the amount of project funding that was approved back in March, our anticipated expenses leave us with about $242,000. The West Fork bid is $168,000, which will leave us with about $74,000 in money that is not obligated at this time. However, we're going to have to work out some sort of a final agreement with APAC with the work that they've already done.
We have not done that.
We haven't
No.
yet. We are still negotiating with them. The unit prices would take it to about $30,000, but we feel that the ending cost should be less than that
This
because,
is unsatisfactory work.
yeah.
We didn't, just in short, we didn't feel like we had a claim of just a flat non-fulfillment of contract, because they actually did perform.
tried.
And they made an attempt, and they did provide some value. But as Greg said, there is a limited amount to that value. So we feel like we do need to pay them something, but the final tally is going to be left up.
Yes, so we don't want to rush into this and come up with an agreement that isn't satisfactory to both parties, so we wanted to take a little bit of time and make sure both we and APAC have an opportunity to really look at the costs. And they have not yet given us a number of what their costs are. Cost and the unit costs are two different things. Because unit cost includes some profit.
How many times have we done this in the city of Hayes before?
Twice.
This will be the third time. We did 8th Street and we did Commerce Parkway.
And both of those were done by the company we're recommending now. We also we had to do some
Tests.
grinding on 41st Street because people
Right.
thought the ride wasn't quite
Right.
right. And that was the company that was doing the diamond grinding. So when they did that one, they performed okay. It's just that we really think that what's happening to the concrete here is a unique situation and we have to deal with it in a different way.
Well, I guess so. I mean, it's happening north of Walmart. I'm told that's not bad, but it's getting worse. It's still happening on Commerce Parkway. It's bad on Canterbury. Have we thought about actually finding out why it's doing it before we keep just grinding it down? To me, it's like, well, the nail's popping up, so let's just keep hitting it with the hammer and seeing what happens instead of going, let's finding out why the nail's coming out.
Well, we are going to be looking at doing, as I said,
Core
probably
samples,
some
or?
core sampling and geotech work. We want to look at what the base of the road looks like in every case, how much thickness there is to the pavement. And I think it's really good to probably do this on asphalt and concrete roads, not just pick one.
And it could be the composition of the concrete too.
Well, it's probably everything.
There's probably several different things that are causing this. The situation with Walmart is really different than the one on 27th. Walmart, the whole panels are just shifting.
shot.
They're not bending, they're just shifting.
So I guess my point is, is this would you say this is a public safety emergency?
It's a acceptance of travel more than anything. People want a smoother surface.
Okay.
And we told them we would get them that.
Yeah.
So-
So given that, that's a good answer, and the cost of this, and that we don't know what's causing it, and we haven't resolved the one that's not satisfactory, I would be inclined to just do nothing, learn more about what's causing the problem before we spend, or commit to spending over $150,000 to fix something that we don't know what's causing it. And what we may be doing is just putting a Band-Aid on it, because the Commerce Parkway one is still pretty wobbly. And as you said, there's only so much you can grind until you start hitting metal, and then it's all over. So I'll leave it to the commission, but I'd probably be
That's
voting
an
no.
option.
That
I'd say
is an
do
option.
nothing.
How,
Yes.
Do nothing's always an option, and we're fine with that. It's just
Okay.
there was the expectation of a concrete grinding program this year, and so we wanted to make sure the opportunities there to fulfill it.
I think with all things, we have an expectation, but then reality flies in the face of it, and it looks like this isn't going to work too well. Let's-
No, this is one we're having a problem with.
And I say step back.
Well, I would agree with no guarantee it's going to work. I think we do step back.
was the issue on Commerce Parkway, was that the same way where they were bowing in or
I
bowing
don't
up?
think so. That's something new
It's
that
more of
we're
a
running
kind of
into.
a washboard type
Yeah.
thing, and right when you came over the overpass, I guess.
And 8th Street is just an old street, and so you have panels that shift and come up, and they just really went in and smoothed out all of the rough edges across 8th Street. 8th
What-
Street was very successful. It's still rough because it's an old street, but the grinding worked pretty well.
The
I
thing,
used-
I'm sorry, go.
I used to or still do, haul my pickup and camper down Commerce Parkway, and it was terrible before. Like, I didn't want to drive that road. Now, I can drive it and not even feel a bump going over it. So I think that it really does, what they did on Commerce Parkway works. If it's the same type of thing that's happening elsewhere, I don't mind doing it and spending the extra $4,000, but I'd like to know, I asked this question last week of what the APAC is going to be compensated for the current contract, because it isn't really a breach of contract. They did do the service we requested, so I would like to know what that's going to cost us.
Mr. Brown has
No, we're
estimated
just-
the unit costs for what they've performed is about $30,000. And we believe the final agreement that we come to should be somewhat less than that.
And I think Mr. Bird would weigh in differently. I mean, obviously, we have a relationship with that contractor, and we want to preserve that, and they're part of the community. But if someone came in to do your hardwood floors in your house, it's a similar situation, and they really screwed it up, you wouldn't say, gosh, they tried so hard. You'd say, get out of my house. And again, this is not my money. It belongs to everybody. And so I do think what they did was a failure, because they kept doing it, they kept trying to cut it, thinking that would make it better, and it just kept following the contour. It wasn't smoothing it out. So, I mean, you pay them liquidated damages, but I say no.
How often do we let contracts like that where, because if this hadn't come up and the work was completed, I don't think, I surely wouldn't have been the wiser that it wasn't APAC who did the work. I had no idea there was a subcontractor on this. How often are we voting on contracts and then it's getting subcontracted out?
Very often.
Most of the time.
Yeah, and this was brought up in the program, that APEC was the award and they plan to.
For instance, on the mill and overlay project, they bring in a company that mills a street. They lay down the pavement, then they bring in another company to stripe it.
Okay. Well, I tend to agree with Commissioner Schwaller. I don't think we need to rush into anything.
The question I have, though, if we're going to study seeing what's going wrong, how much is that going to cost? Are we going to spend hundreds of thousands?
No, God, no.
You take core samples.
No,
We've been
but-
doing it forever.
But we will spend
No.
money.
Quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll take a little money, but nothing.
Engineering and scientific study isn't
Right, let's find out.
inexpensive, but.
When they bid something like that, do they not come out and look at the street? Do you just send them specifications and they bid off of that?
Pretty much.
Because I would imagine on something like this, I mean, if you have to do more grinding, I would imagine it would cost more. So I would think that on something like this, they'd want to look at the street versus just a mill and overlay where, you know what you're gonna do with the mill and overlay, but this, it depends on how much grinding you're gonna do, what your costs are, I would think.
Right.
So but they didn't look at the street and determine whether or not they could do it.
That I don't know. I don't know what their process is for deciding how to bid a project. The contractor who is doing it said this is only the second time in 13 years in the business that he has had this happen. He said in every other case, he's produced a satisfactory product, and he's been doing it for 13 years, so.
But you're gonna get input, though, from the one who's gonna do it if they go forward. You might wanna ask them if they've had to redo any other projects and see if there's a common thread or anything like that.
Well, again, there's no sense of urgency, and Commissioner Schwaller, this isn't a public safety issue.
Go.
We brought this back just on the assumption that there was going to be a grinding project this year with the assumption the commission wanted to finish the project this year. It won't hurt our feelings if we don't do it.
And
I
one of-
think we're talking about two roads that are 30-plus years old that you're trying to get another 20 years out of. I mean, it's a lot better to grind them down now than replace a whole road in a couple of years from now, 5, 10 years. I mean, if we can extend what we currently have for $168,000, then I don't.
But we don't know.
But is the
that's-
grinding gonna
We
extend the
don't know
life?
that. That's the problem.
I guess that would be my question.
And given my limited understanding of asphalt and concrete streets, the problem is, we have, the fact, how was the base prepared? We don't know. These are very old. The base may have failed because of the drought and the clay in the soil, which has probably happened, or there's something in the aggregate, the way the concrete was mixed. We don't know. And until you actually do a core sample, about the size of this, a bit deeper, we won't know. You have to look into that. And so that's what happened with Hall Street. We had to replace it because in 1960, someone just said, well, pour some asphalt over that. That's not how you do a street. We don't know how these were done. And before we throw another $150,000 away plus, let's find out what we're doing.
Well, Commissioner Jones, if they could prove to us that it's going to last 20 more years by doing it,
That'd be
but right
great.
now, we have no proof, so that, I mean.
Well, I think the consensus here would be to not necessarily table this, just not take any action on it till further notice.
Okay.
And I guess you're.
We're gonna come back with engineering, get RFPs on what to do with
But,
it.
just report back with something that kind of gives us an idea whether or not we want to do any more of that. Is that okay? Everybody all right with that? Okay.
We'll be back.
Thank you, Mr. Sine.
Thank you.
Move on
Hey, Greg,
to,
hit the clicker, please.
to a issue with the Hayes Industrial Park, lots 19 and 20, and the purchase of the NEW building by Hayes Medical Center. Pardon me?
Someone wants to step out.
I'll be leaving.
Oh, okay.
I think the manager wanted me to take the lead on this, is that right? And this is really a pretty simple thing. I think it was explained to you previously by Todd, but this is the NEW property that has now been purchased by Hayes Medical Center. And it was originally platted, as a lot of developments are, surface rights only. The city owns the mineral rights in that area. They don't own all the mineral rights all up and down there. There are some other areas that when we condemned, we did not take mineral rights. But there are avigation easements that come out at basically I'm not sure it's a 45-degree angle, but it's a fairly shallow angle, actually, and it goes from, of course, ground level out to infinity. And those avigation easements are something that the city has to enforce to continue to have good relationship with the FAA. And so this area could not ever be drilled explored for the minerals because of those avigation easements to start with. So in the course of the transaction, Hayes Medical Center asked if the city would consider entering into what's called a non-disturbance, surface disturbance agreement, which is what we have for you here tonight. It basically says that we will not drill any oil wells on the property, I guess is the best way to put it. And from their point of view, it makes sense, although I think it's unlikely that anybody would ever do that. I mean, it's sat out there for how many years with NEW in it, and before that, whoever it was, and the county was in it most recently. And so anyway, I told them I would present this to you with a recommendation that it be approved. It does not forfeit your mineral rights. That theoretically, the mineral rights can still be exercised via what's called a whipstocking or directional drilling. And also, if there were ever any mineral development in the area, what would really happen anywhere is what's called unitization. So our minerals would be unitized with some surrounding tracts of ground, and then they drill their well somewhere that it's legal to drill, and then everybody shares in that unit. So I don't think it's got any negative impact fiscally, and it's probably a favor that you're doing for Hayes Medical Center, frankly. But it's a pretty cheap favor, and it seems to me that it makes sense since we do have, like I say, the avigation easements anyway, and it allows us to show FAA that we're doing what we're supposed to do.
Questions?
So if we were to, in the future, and well, we wouldn't be here, but how easy would it be to, would it take an action of the commission to, so if someone can't want to do some
To
horizontal
lease it?
drilling,
Oh, we could lease it, yeah,
Okay.
but it would have to be
conditional based on.
directional drilling.
All right.
And that's actually what we did in our condemnation cases. That's how we avoided having to pay for the minerals on those, was
Right.
we showed the court that there are techniques by which you can set off or step out from the surface quite a ways, and now we know with the stuff going on up in the Bakken field, they can go down and make a right-hand turn. They literally can drill down a mile and out a mile. Not that that would happen here, but theoretically, it's the minerals are always accessible. It's just how much it takes to get to them.
Very good. Thank you, John.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the surface non-disturbance agreement and declaration and direct the mayor to sign it on behalf of the city of Hayes.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jones, seconded by Commissioner Musel on the agreement for the non-disturbance agreement as requested by Hayes Medical Center. Is there any further discussion on that? Any further comments? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, 2017 budget public hearing. At this time, I will open the public hearing on the 2017 budget. Stock market.
Yeah. Rang the bell.
If you want me to, I will run through the budget. There are 3 items regarding the budget tonight. Public hearing, which is required by statute, the resolution, which is also required by statute, and then the budget approval. There's a reason why the budget resolution is ahead of the budget approval. The statute calls for that. Commissioner Musel was asking about the resolution. What the resolution is required for is you are levying 25 mills, which is the same millage you levied last year, but you're bringing in $80,000 more dollars. So the state statute requires you to adopt a resolution acknowledging that you're bringing in more money than you did the previous year. This has been in place, I think this is the 3rd year of that you've done that, and so again, the mill rate is the same. With regard to the budget, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. We've gone through this before. But the highlights of the budget is, as I mentioned, the 25 mil cap is maintained. The budget is balanced. The budget does not contain any full-time employees, additional full-time employees. We continue to fund reserves and pay cash for large capital projects. The street maintenance program is fully funded. We have accelerated the reconstruction of 8th Street and Allen Street in the capital improvement plan, with 8th Street moved to 2017 and Allen Street moved to 2018. On a side note, we have the notices, requests for bids for engineering out now. So if the budget is approved, our anticipation is to use an economy of scale, have both streets engineered at the same time, and save a little money off of that. And then we are, as always, there's an emphasis on sustainability. There has been a continued shallow decline in sales tax revenues. We are budgeting a reduction of $250,000 based off of what we project off of this year, another $250,000 decline for 2017. We offset that with $300,000 in expenditure cuts. So we're still $50,000 ahead of the game, and with our unreserved fund balance and the cushion we have in there, if we do have that protracted decline, it may get further, we're okay with that too. We can always take reactionary measures. So we feel it's a very good budget, and I'm very happy with Kim Rupp. This is the first year that the finance director has been in charge with the budget preparation, and he did a very admirable job this year doing that. I don't think he wanted any friends at department heads, but he did a great job.
You did a good job.
Any comments from the audience? Any comments from commissioners? Or questions? If not, at this time, I will close the public hearing on the 2017 budget, move on to,
I think that takes a motion under state statute, so I move that we close the public session for the 2017 City of Hayes budget hearing.
I'll second.
motion and second to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to the 2017 budget resolution. Consider approving Resolution 2016-004.
And as I previously mentioned, this is a resolution required by state statute. Your levy is bringing in more dollars than the previous year, so by state statute, you have to pass a resolution acknowledging that.
Commissioners?
I would move that we consider approving resolution number 2016-004, authorizing the city to budget property tax revenues for 2017 in an amount exceeding the total dollars levied in the 2016 budget.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Myers, seconded by Commissioner Schwaller on the 2017 budget resolution. Does anybody have any comments on that?
It is interesting that we are required by state law to do something that the state can't do to itself. Nevertheless, it is important to point out at this time that the vast majority of our revenue comes from sales tax, and that over 10 years ago, we decided that we would no longer rely on property taxes to fund the general operations of the city. So in that 25 mills, we're funding the library, we're funding both fire and police, so first responder equipment. There's some airport in there, some other things like that. So these are not the core functions of the city, but it does help provide some services. But again, most people are not paying it through their property taxes. They would fund say the school district or the county.
I will also point out for the viewers at home that we are the only city that actually does this kind of a funding mechanism, or has this kind of a funding mechanism whereby we fund our general fund with sales tax revenue strictly. So is there any further comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion for the 2017 budget resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. That moves us to the 2017 budget. Consider approving the 2017 budget.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Schwaller, seconded by Commissioner Myers to approve the 2017 budget. Any questions or comments?
I'll just commend Kim again for the budget this year. With the sales tax being down, I think you guys have taken, action to keep us where we should be. And, even if they do continue to be down, which it looks like they may for a while, I think we'll be in good shape. And I think that, former commissioners, that have been on here for quite a few years, what you guys have done, and we've continued to do that, and I think we need to, in the future, we need to continue doing that. But thank you for the budget this year, and I try to always think on the positive side. I believe we'll get this turned around, but it's going to be a while. I mean, things are pretty rough out there with, grain prices and oil and stuff. but-
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, but it'll turn around. We'll get there.
And I would also kind of note that in the budget, there's no raises for city employees this year, which, as an employee myself, I think that I would be upset by that. I think I would find that definitely as a downer at the very least. So I hope that city employees understand the position that we've been put in with declining revenues, why that happened. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'll say that I hope that next year that's not the case. That we're really going to look to see what we can do for our employees, because I think in the past couple of months we've seen through, the water fix on July 4th and the cleanup that our crews have done after the windstorm, that we have great employees, and we do want to take care of them. But it's just, we can't give money we don't have, unfortunately. So hopefully things will turn around and things will be better next year.
Further questions?
If I could add to that, on the employees, I know, Toby, you tasked them to save as much as they could this year, and it sounded like they did a really good job, but, Commissioner Jones brought a few weeks ago about outside agencies. And I think next year's it's going to be important that we do everything we can to get raises for the employees. And I will be honest with you, I think that's probably going to be where we cut. I mean, that would be my opinion. Next year, if sales tax continue, I mean, that's where we need to definitely look at before we look at not giving employees raises.
You're reading my mind, Commissioner. I don't know, it seems strange to me that we tried to do a reset on these outside agency funding requests a long time ago. We wanted the agencies to know that just because an agency received funding in the prior is not a guarantee. It's not an entitlement, but it's become that again. And I think when we have frustrations with any outside agency, that we should probably voice that earlier.
Yep.
But I will say that for the first time, I think our expectation should be going into 2017 that there are no guarantees for any outside agency funding in 2018. And that we start with a fresh slate. It doesn't matter what they got this year. They have to justify what they want and what they're going to do with it and what the outcomes are. And I don't see that happening anymore.
Yeah.
So I agree, and I'm very glad you brought that up. I thought a lot about it, and I agree. We need to start from scratch on all this.
I think probably it would be good if we brought it up between now and next budget cycle on our own and discuss it publicly as a
Absolutely.
reminder that this is the standard
It's it.
moving forward.
It's not an entitlement program,
Yeah.
it's over.
Yep.
Just to clarify, when I brought that up, it wasn't because I was frustrated with any agency, as some people might think, especially following the heels of the pavilion, which I voted against. The two were not related. I just don't understand the funding of the DHDC versus, I don't see how they're any different than a Chamber of Commerce, whom we don't fund at all, and who does a lot for our community like the DHDC does. So I don't understand the difference between them two. But yes, definitely, I think we have to look at the outside agencies a little harder next year if it comes down to the same budget crunch that we're looking at right now.
Well, the difference, Commissioner, is that the Chamber charges pretty hefty membership fees.
I understand.
And the DHTC does not. So the primary source of revenue for the chamber is that, and the DHTC decided not to do that because they didn't want to appear to be in competition and do some double dipping. Why the commission stopped a path that it started, commission changed, ideas changed, and again, though, with every budget, it's a fresh start. And so just because someone in 2007 said, wouldn't it be great if we did, we're not beholden to that. Just as what we decide, there likely won't be an election, but we can change our mind between now and next June.
That's right.
So we're not, no one's beholden.
Yeah, and I personally, I didn't think that what you said for the budget had anything to do with the
No.
pavilion. I take you at face value, and I think that maybe that actually more of us probably agreed with you than disagreed. It's just, unfortunately, I think, well, at least I personally, I'm try to not speak for other people. We had just gotten to a point where I think to do that at that point in the cycle would have been unfair. But I think moving forward, everything's on the table.
Yep, I would agree.
On the motion for approval of the 2017 budget, all those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. Report of the city manager.
And nothing to report?
Mr. Jones.
I have nothing.
Mr. Waller.
That's something, but no, fine.
I want to recognize our newer assistant city manager. I don't think that it's actually been publicized, the service that he provided for a community close to us, the community he formerly managed. When he left Oakley, they hired a new city manager. This is my understanding. They hired a new city manager, and apparently, come budget time, the city manager decided to just up and leave. And I don't think actually gave the city of Oakley any notice at all. And the public may or may not realize that the state actually there's dates in statute that you have to meet in order to pass your budget, and if you don't meet them, bad things happen. I don't know what bad things. John could elaborate on what bad things happen.
Take
You're
away
right,
your
they're
name.
not good.
Yeah,
Named
they're-
after a governor.
I don't know if the city of Oakley ceases to exist or what, but
Yes,
The,
they just wipe you off the map.
bad things happen, and the city reached out to Jacob and asked him for some assistance, and he, on his own, took a vacation PTO time here and went to the city of Oakley and essentially did their budget for them at no cost to the city of Oakley. So I just want to recognize him because I think that that's great, and I think that we should continue to have good relations with all of our neighboring cities around us, and if we can help out like that, then I think that we should. And I really appreciate that we have staff members who are willing to do that.
Absolutely.
They have pretty sound pharmaceutical services there as well.
Yep, and yes, it also happened to be around a day that I went to fill in at the pharmacy in Oakley as well.
All right.
But I didn't do my services free, so.
Well, in that note, I think Edson needs its native son back. And the vice mayor could go serve.
They won't take him back.
They keep trying to kick you out, you keep going back. They can live it with you.
I would agree with that.
Mr. Musel.
I don't know if I can top that, but I just want to last night I was able to volunteer with our United Methodist Church volunteer at the Duck Derby with Big Brothers Big Sisters last night. And I wasn't able to go to the pre-event they had the week before, but I volunteered with my kids last night, and what an amazing event. I mean, I cannot believe the amount of people were there and the amount, I guess the amount of money they raised for the communities around us and Hayes, and it was a great event. I really had no idea what they were doing, and it was a lot of fun. And it was just great to see all the volunteers that were out there and just all the people in attendance. So it was a really neat thing that went on.
Thank you. I was going to make, we were talking about contracts and street work and so forth. I would commend the company that's been in here doing the street projects such as Hall Street, 27th Street. I thought it was amazing. The traffic flow was very minimally interrupted during that time, and it seemed to me like it really went fast and it really went smooth. Even with Hall Street, they had a little bit of a rain delay in there that one day, but that was whatever that the company was did a very admirable job, and I really appreciate that work. I believe this time we are There's a request for,
I would request an executive session for a period not to exceed 20 minutes to include the city commission, city manager, city attorney, Todd Powell from the city attorney's office, utilities director, assistant utilities director, and assistant city manager. Oh, for matters of discussing attorney-client privilege.
For how many minutes?
Not to exceed 20.
Oh, so moved.
you want to restate that motion?
I ain't
We have a motion for an executive session by Commissioner Myers, seconded by Commissioner Musel. All those in favor of going into executive session for 20 minutes, not to exceed 20 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0 at this time. All those persons present that weren't included in the motion